It's great to see you all, and thank you very much for coming. Today we're going to be doing a few presentations from some key partners to Heart of Bucks on young futures and what's happening in Buckinghamshire to support young people and hopefully some great ideas and examples of work happening in our great county. We're going to have a question and answer session at the end. So if you could please hold questions throughout, and if you do have questions, please pop them in the chat function. So that is located at the top bar. It's a little speech bubble with chat written underneath it. If you click that, you should be able to type in and ask questions, and I will put them to our panel. The other thing I'd ask is that if you could all please stay on mute so we can have the space free for the speakers. Thank you. So I'm going to introduce our speakers now. First up, we're going to have Stuart Parker and Chrissy Hutton from Buckinghamshire Council to talk a little bit about their work, which is fantastic, and we've worked with these guys for quite a few years now, isn't it, Stuart? So we're really pleased to have them on board. Then we're going to hear from Nick Robinson at an organisation that's relatively new to us, but doing some really interesting work in the sort of young entrepreneur space across the country, and we're delighted to have just set up a bit of a partnership with Nick. So we'll hear a little bit about what he's doing, and also we're going to be hearing from Charlie Dixon-Prior, who is the operations director at Caudwell Youth, which is a relatively new charity, but doing some fantastic work at but across quite a few counties in the southeast. So welcome, Charlie. But first, and maybe not as exciting, I'm going to be talking to you for 5 minutes, if I may, about Heart of Bucks' work in the youth space and introducing our new fund. So I am going to share screen if I can. Bear with me. So can you all see that? Hopefully, yes. Great. So the Young Futures Fund is our newest and I'm going to say most exciting funding opportunity that we have at the moment running. It is designed specifically for young people, and our strapline, which I think is really important message, is that we're investing in Buckinghamshire's next generation. So the reason that we've put this fund together is that we're acutely aware at the Community Foundation that young people in our county are facing a variety of challenges. 22% of children living in poverty, 11% of pupils in Buckinghamshire eligible for free school meals, and a huge rise in sort of mental health conditions for the under 16s. A sort of 50% rise, actually, which is a shocking number from 1 year to the next. And in 2021, 10,500 households with children in them claiming universal credit, which is up 100% from the year prior. In 2022, 4,277 children in need in the county in 2021. These are statistics from the Children's Society, but what they do, I think, is paint a picture of a county that is traditionally perceived as very affluent, but in reality has pockets of deprivation like anywhere else. And I think actually Buckinghamshire suffers from being presented in this way as very affluent. It means we're often overlooked for funding from central government, and it doesn't help the children who are living in disadvantaged households to be thought of as living in an affluent area. So that's the context, and that's perhaps some of the reasoning behind why we've decided to jump into such a youth-orientated project. So Young Futures Fund itself, how does it work? Well, it's a platform for supporting local young people in Buckinghamshire, aged between 0, so from birth, all the way up to 30. And we've extended the sort of traditional young person age bracket because we think that actually if you're in your 20s, you've had quite a hard few years, and perhaps that period of time, which is quite critical in your personal development, your professional development, has suffered as a result. A critical part of this project is that it's a partnership. So we're working with some great organisations. So you're going to hear in a moment from SWEF and Nick Robinson, You're also going to hear from, you're not going to hear from them, but they're in the room, I believe, the Rothschild Foundation, who have jumped on board and been really full partners to this from the very beginning. And we're also working with Buckinghamshire Council and Stuart and Chrissy, who you're also going to hear from in a moment. So it's great to have an early collection of committed organisations and funders to supporting this project. We're going to be making grants to voluntary sector organisations. So in our traditional way, grants to charities, grants to community groups, but we're also going to be providing grants to young individuals directly in the form of bursaries, scholarships, crisis payments, support for entrepreneurs, and trying to help particularly disadvantaged young people in the county have more support and have a better realisation of their potential. The USP to this project, and the thing that I'm probably most excited about, is that we're going to have a youth board. So this is going to be a project that's governed and directed and steered by young people themselves, which I think is really important in giving them a voice, giving them responsibility, and giving them access to resources, hopefully significant financial resources. So what's next? Please visit the website, check it out for yourself, www.youngfuturesfund.org. And you know, there's a way for you to get in touch with us. There's a newsletter. You can have a click around the different pages and read about what it's all about. We're recruiting our youth board at the moment. So if you know any young people in Buckinghamshire aged between 16 and 30 that are interested in getting involved in a significant project like this, please do encourage them to apply. All the information is on the website. Help us spread the word. Please do talk about this to your networks and help us engage more widely with the people in Buckinghamshire who are interested in helping young people. And yeah, please do look out for more funds launching in 2021. So that is it from me. And I am going to hand over to Stuart and Chrissy at Buckinghamshire Council. So Stuart, over to you, please.
Thank you. So yes, my name's Stuart Parker. I'm Community Youth Development Manager at Buckinghamshire Council, and my colleague Chrissy Hutton, who will be speaking shortly, is our Youth Participation Coordinator. So we're going to just talk a little bit about what's going on in the youth sector for us as a local authority at the minute, some of the priorities that we're working towards and some of the challenges that we're experiencing now and have experienced over the past few years. So a bit of national context to youth work. So following a near 70% cut in youth services nationally over the last decade, that has led to obviously a number of challenges for us as local authorities, but also the charities working within the sector. It's one of the main things it's done is led to less qualified youth workers being employed by councils and less training opportunities being provided for people to gain qualifications in youth work. We're not seeing the amount of courses being delivered by universities and colleges alike. Apparently, according to the most recent report by the National Youth Agency, 1 in 4 youth centres are under threat of closure. And that's due to the constant battle for funding, for recruiting volunteers, for recruiting trustees, increased energy prices on buildings and trying to keep them afloat in terms of running costs. So what the government have done in response to that is kind of reviewed the guidance for local authorities. One of the key outcomes highlighted that provision must be led and delivered by qualified staff working alongside skilled volunteers generally in our voluntary community sector. We in Bucks are increasingly seeing volunteers leading youth clubs in order to keep them open, which leads to provision still being accessible for young people, but they aren't necessarily able to deal with some of the issues that the young people are presenting in youth clubs. So it's becoming a safe space for young people, but not necessarily a space where they can talk about the issues they're facing. So that's something we're very keen to try and address as a local authority. So this recent guidance, following that, the National Youth Agency published a checklist for us. And in that checklist, it recognises that we've got a vital role to play, but the voluntary community sector and the charities within it have also got much to contribute, and it needs to be that collaborative approach. So we're currently reviewing that checklist at the minute, and then a report's going to be produced to our senior leadership team within the council to basically summarise what it is we need to do to ensure we continue to meet the statutory guidance. Next slide, please. So in terms of the local context for us, we're committed to ensuring that youth work is still on offer within Bucks. We are fortunate in some ways that we still have a youth work offer. That's not the case in all local authorities. We have seen many youth services disappear. So we are still fighting to keep youth services and youth work alive within Bucks. It's now offered in a variety of ways, though. Historically, the council would have been delivering youth clubs, running the youth clubs, preparing sessions across the county. Nowadays, we have a community youth team here, which is the team I manage. And what the focus has become is working with our voluntary community sector and the youth charities within it, who are the main providers of the youth work. So we've got 15 youth clubs in Bucks who have leases with us. They're run by management committees and they have a service level agreement with us. That gives us the kind of influence to be able to meet with them and discuss their data reporting, and also do things like spot checks with them to make sure that they're operating safely and adhering to ratios, policies, etc., etc. We also have 2 youth centres that we oversee directly ourselves. So that's the Roundhouse Youth Centre in High Wycombe and the Youth Space Aylesbury on the Grange School site, where we actively encourage partners to use those centres and coordinate the delivery from those centres. Within the operational side of the council, we have targeted provision happening at level 2 and level 3. And those levels are based on the continuum of need that was developed as part of the safeguarding partnership. So level 2 is kind of early help, preventative work, and level 3 is where there's more social care involvement, in a very brief summary. So we do have youth workers who go out and do one-to-one support for those young people and run group activities within our family centres across Bucks as well. We've got our participation team who are responsible for hearing the voices of young people, and Chrissy will be talking about that very shortly, so I won't go into too much detail there. And then we've got a clear focus on our engagement with NEET young people. So that's young people not in education, employment or training, and how we try and get them back into some form of education, employment or training. Again, the motto down the side, listen, act, respond, repeat, is our kind of ethos to engagement with young people. And again, I believe Chrissy will talk a little bit more about that because that's part of the participation strategy. And then you've got a list of where our leased youth clubs are across the county there. So at the minute, we've got 5 in each of our geographical regions of Aylesbury, Wycombe and Chiltern and South Bucks. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, we are fortunate that we've got a very strong offer within our voluntary community sector within Bucks. I've listed a number of our key partners down there. I could have probably filled another 3 pages if I'm honest. That's how many providers we have. The issue for us is how we kind of work together and how we make it a collaborative offer. As we know, charities are fighting to sort of keep themselves alive, fighting for funding pots. So quite often we're not always made aware of what charities are applying for and what they're necessarily focusing on across Bucks. So part of the challenge for us is how do we work closer with these? One of the ways we do that is Monica Berg, who sits within my team, runs monthly partnership meetings where we encourage all our partners to come together and talk to each other and talk about what their priorities are and how they might be able to work with each other moving forward. There's a couple of examples there of some of the collaborative projects that we've done. I won't talk them through, but happy to share slides afterwards because I'm conscious of time. And then, yes, I think I've covered the other 2 parts. So the continued challenge for us is about how we develop a strategic view for youth work across Bucks. How do we make it more joined up? One of the biggest issues is that smaller charities are often the charities that are struggling the most, and that's because they don't necessarily have the time or the skill set to apply for funding opportunities that are out there. So often it's the same charities that are accessing funding, and in particular the big pots of funding, and they're not always the most appropriate charities to be receiving that funding. But they might have a grants officer who's experienced in writing bids, whereas the local youth club down the road is run by volunteers who are working during the day and just giving their time of an evening. So that's a big challenge for us. How do we kind of get past that and make sure that the smaller youth clubs in particular are accessing these pots of funding? Next slide, please. So I spoke a little bit about NEAT. Big focus for us. We've got a statutory responsibility to track where our NEAT young people and our not knowns, so those that we've got absolutely no idea where their destination is once they've finished education. So this means making contact with young people who aren't currently in education, employment or training, and trying to help them find something that will suit them and get them back into some form. And this refers to young people in years 12 and 13 who are residents in Bucks. So within my team, I've got a youth and training employment coordinator who oversees a partnership approach to engagement with NEAT young people. So we develop relationships with partners who are delivering these projects, and then coordinate and support the offer and bring that together to promote collaborative working. We have a NEAT solutions panel where partners come together and young people can be presented, and then offers are presented to the young person, and then they have a choice basically to make. So they might be NEAT, but then after the NEAT solutions panel, they might have 4 opportunities to go and work with Central Training, Caudwell Youth, or whoever it might be. Some of our current statistics to NEAT, our current figure is sat at 13.9%. That's slightly higher than we would like it to be. The aim for us as a local authority is to have it round about the kind of 6% mark. 12% of that figure, 12.6% of that figure is our not knowns though. So they're the ones that we've got no idea where they are. And we've just actually commissioned a contract to advisor to work specifically on helping us find our not knowns. And this actively involves tasks such as like door knocking and trying to physically find where these young people are and what their next destination is going to be or likely to be. Mental health continues to be the main barrier that the NEAT young people are experiencing. And I should mention that young people with an EHCP, so that's an education healthcare plan, are recorded separately, so they're not included in this data. And it's round about 34% of that statutory cohort. And this is so just to give that a number, it's 259 young people. And you can see there roughly where these young people are in terms of our opportunity Bucks wards, because that's a piece of work we just did for that. Next slide, please. So I'm going to fly through this to give Chrissy the opportunity to talk about participation. So we lost our detached and youth outreach youth work offer, and that's coincided with a significant increase in areas of vulnerability, and councillors are often ringing me up saying we've got an issue with ASB in a local area, what can you do? Well, previously we'd have been able to go out and do a detached outreach piece of work, but we no longer have that option. Historically, we had youth workers running sessions and in buildings, so we were more prominent, building links with schools and being visible in communities. We don't have that anymore. One of our big gaps is our engagement and support for the Gypsy, Roma and Traveller community. I've talked about addressing the statutory guidance. Lack of funding, trustees and skilled staff and volunteers for charities continues to be a problem. Spoke about the smaller charities having less time for funding, and then building issues with the ongoing costs that we've seen increase recently. We're also amid a current transformation for children's services where they're looking to implement a family hub approach, which at the minute could result in the loss of youth workers' identity even further. So again, one of the keys for us is how we maintain the youth workers that we've currently got and they don't be swallowed up as generic family workers. Next slide, please. So our response, we're looking to create a kind of consortium approach for youth work in the county, which will make things more joined up. We're looking to introduce a training package for young people and for workers as well. Signposting youth organisations to appropriate funding streams and collaborative project opportunities. We've just created a new role to act as strategic lead for the VCS youth work engagement in Bucks, so that we do have more of an oversight here. We're reviewing our buildings locations, so a lot of our youth centres are on school sites. So can we work collaboratively with the school, and that they use the building during the day, cover a lot of the costs, and then the youth club can just focus on the evening rather than trying to make it sustainable during the day. And we're also looking to enhance the offer within our family centres and make these more young person friendly. Next slide, please. So Opportunity Bucks is a big priority at the minute, part of the levelling up approach. We're being asked to focus on this area in particular for our youth outreach offer. Addressing the new statutory guidance is going to be key over the next few months. And then we want to do an exercise to map local provision. Chris is going to talk about the Youth Summit. And then the final thing that's going on at the minute is they're looking to make libraries more of a positive space for young people, so that young people are more comfortable going in there for space to do like homework activities and things like that. Next slide, and I believe it's over to Chrissy.
Thanks, Stuart. Henry, how speedily do you want me to whiz through my bit? Be honest.
Relatively speedily, please, Chrissy. Yes.
All right, I'll do my best. Hello, everyone. I'm Chrissy. I'm the Youth Participation Coordinator for Bucks Council. My job's all about youth participation. Probably lots of people on the call are familiar with youth participation as a concept, but basically it's our moral duty to get young people involved as citizens in our society. But it's also a really important cost benefit tool when we're doing things like funding youth work, because what we see is when young people aren't involved in shaping provision for young people, the resulting provision doesn't work super well, it doesn't meet young people's needs, and it ends up not being an efficient use of that money. So moral duty and a good cost benefit reason for doing it. The local context is that the council launched a youth participation strategy in May 2022. And as part of that, they invented my role. That strategy is a commitment from the council to listen, act and respond to the voices of children and young people in shaping our services, our places and our resources for young people. And it extends that concept out. It's saying we want everyone in Buckinghamshire County to be listening, acting and responding to our young people's views. These on the slide, and I won't read through all of these, are some of the key deliverables of that youth participation strategy. One part of it is a website called youthvoicebucks.co.uk. That's a website for young people and adults that shares both opportunities for young people to get involved in youth participation projects and, of course, the Young Futures Fund board. Recruitment is listed on the homepage, and it also hosts case studies so that we can review youth participation projects that are going on and continually learn from them and improve what we're doing. We have a county-wide Youth Voice Forum. We have at the moment 21, soon to be 23 young volunteers who I meet with regularly and support to share their views with a wide range of stakeholders in the council, senior leaders in the council and the wider county, sharing their views on what effective youth provision might look like, on how you promote to young people, how you engage young people. If the council launches a new strategy and they want to get young people's views on that, they do those kind of consultation exercises as well. Those young people also run their own projects, and their biggest project is the Bucks Youth Summit. We had the first one in February this year, and it was the launch of the youth participation strategy to young people. It was a conference that brought young people from schools across the county together at the Waterside Theatre in Aylesbury to share their views on 8 different workshop themes. We had 142 young people there from 16 schools. It was super amazing. It was supposed to be one-off, but everybody loved it so much, so we're doing it again. The next event will be on the 11th of March 2024. So we're planning that now, and we've already got 32 schools signed up to that event, which is almost every mainstream secondary school in the county. And yes, I am headhunting those final 5 or 6 schools to get them on board as well. We also have established forum for young people with SEND and young people care experience who've been through Buckinghamshire's care system. And we have some other little programs as well to get young people involved, such as our community board, Young Ambassadors, and we've just launched a counsellor shadowing scheme. So there's now a framework for young people and counsellors to form shadowing relationships and learn from each other. Next slide, please, Daniel. Thank you. I thought people might be interested to hear what the priorities of young people in Buckinghamshire are at the moment, according to young people. Henry gave some amazing stats about the kind of professional viewpoint on young people's priorities at the moment. And this is, from my perspective, what young people are actually saying day to day. So at the Youth Summit 2024, we're going to have 10 conversation spaces, different workshops on different themes, and those themes have been chosen by the young people in the Youth Voice Executive Committee to reflect young people's priorities. That's what's listed at the top of the screen now. So we have the queer space, LGBTQ+ issues, the SEND space, special educational needs and disabilities, the mental health space, the green space, that's environmentalism, the political space, which will also cover kind of more general community activism, community engagement stuff. Sex education, do better. They all hate sex ed in PSHE and want it to be better. The vape space, I think everyone's familiar with the alarming stats of how many of our young people are vaping. Cost of living crisis, the creative corner, which is about creative careers and careers outside the norm of going to university, and relationships with the police. 5 of those conversation-based topics were at our 2023 event, and there were 3 topics in the 2023 event that aren't featuring in 2024, but still stand as young people's priorities for Buckinghamshire. One of them was a youth-led conversation on sexual violence. So that was a response to the Everyone's Invited movement of young people disclosing sexual harassment and abuse in schools. Spaces and places for young people, exactly as Stuart was saying earlier, we've lost so many of our youth centres. Young people are really struggling to find safe spaces to just hang out. And access for young people in rural communities, which is just this ongoing massive challenge barrier for young people in Buckinghamshire to access things. If they live in a little village, getting to an opportunity can be a real nightmare. At the Youth Summit 2024, we're going to be asking the 300 young people that are there as well, what is missing from these priorities? What else would you say are young people's biggest priorities at the moment? And that's going to feed into Buckinghamshire's Children and Young People's Partnership Plan, which is the great big strategic multi-agency plan for young people. Thanks, Daniel. Next slide, please. A few more priorities. The Youth Voice Executive Committee responded to the Council's recent budget consultation. So these, I won't read them out, other services they prioritised to be protected or invested in. Our Shout Out for Send Forum are currently working on a priority of anti-bullying and education to reduce discrimination. And our care ambassadors have identified priorities, which are social worker communication, preparing for adulthood and leaving care, and stigma and identity. So that's the care experienced group. Thanks, Daniel. Next one. This is my final slide, really. This is what good youth participation looks like. The youth participation strategy very conveniently sets out these 3 rules of engagement. And basically, if we follow those rules of engagement, we're doing good youth participation. The first is we don't ask young people to do something we would not do ourselves. The second is when we engage young people in service development, we give them skills and development opportunities so they can do that to the best of their abilities. We don't throw them in at the deep end. And the third one is essentially when we work with young people in youth participation projects, we make sure we have a really solid plan in place about how we're going to keep them up to date with that project and how they're going to know what difference sharing their voices has actually made. But aside from those rules, youth participation projects come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. The Young Futures Fund Youth Board project is a really innovative, exciting model that I cannot wait to get stuck into and work on. So these are included here because this is what Henry and Grace and I are going to be trying to achieve for the young people who are on the youth board, but also the youth board are probably going to be looking out for this stuff in the applications that are coming in. Are the organisations applying for funding through the Young Futures Fund adhering to these principles, and are they getting young people involved in the shaping of their provision and possibly applications as well? There's another slide that's just some feedback, but I won't read through that. Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you, Chrissy, and thank you, Stuart, for such an interesting and detailed presentation. I think it's really important to get that context from the sort of statutory body for all of the work that you're doing and you're leading in the area, before we move into the non-statutory space, the area that you know is which we're going to look at next, and is optional. You know, this is people driving forward work of their own fruition. So I thought it was really interesting to hear you talk about smaller youth clubs and charities that are having a much harder time accessing funding. And, you know, at the Community Foundation, we're a huge champion of the grassroots. So I think that's a really important message to take away. And we don't want to lose that sort of foundational part of the sector that can often make such a critical difference. So I thought that was really important. And I love the participation message as well. It's absolutely vital, and something that we're really keen to do more of. So thank you, guys. We're going to move on now very quickly to Nick and Giles at SWEF, who are going to tell you a little bit more about their work in a slightly different space to the local authority. So welcome, Nick, welcome, Giles, and over to you.
Thank you, Henry. I'm just going to get my presentation up, which hopefully won't take too long. Is that all right? Can everyone see it, or do I need to probably press that? Can everyone see that? Okay, great. So we've recently started working with Henry and his team, and I think we're probably 1 month in, so it's very early days. SWEF is an organisation that we set up a couple of years ago, and I suppose just a sort of brief what our philosophy is that we believe that an increase in the number of businesses successfully trading is the best way to increase prosperity, and whether that's in a small, you know, a village, a town, a county, or a country. So this is sort of the philosophy behind why we're doing what we're doing, and I suppose what we're trying to do is we are trying to invest in the business initiatives of young people by providing grant funding to the business. So we provide up to £2,000 and of a grant, and I'll go through what the process is for these young people shortly. But one of the sort of key features of this is, and this is a learning that we've picked up over the last 2 years, is that young people who have already committed time and money where possible to get their business off the ground are a much better investment, which is a much better investment than those who just have an idea. So when time and money has been committed to a business, then we think that business is much more likely to endure, and the grant funding that we give is not it's not the be all and end all. It's a small push in the right direction. It's a vote of confidence in them and their business. It can increase their own personal confidence. It can allow them to invest in their business. And so I think the overall the net effect is positive, but we're very mindful of the fact that we are just a very small part of their business journey. So who are we working with? We're working with young individuals who are between 18 and 30 years old, and that we include 18 and 30 years old. We include the extremities there. We invest in sole traders as well as limited companies. The business owner has to be between 18 and 30 years old, and they have to be a majority shareholder. The funds have to be paid into a business bank account, because again, that shows to us that they are committed to the business. They have gone to a Monzo, a Tide, an Atom, or their high street bank, and they've set up a business account. They're keeping everything separately from their home life. And it's just, again, we're always looking for signs that demonstrate their commitment to their business. They don't have to be full-time working on their business. They can be they can be in education, they can be employed, they can be part-time employed. It just has to be a commitment to the business, and we would like to see them, in the interviews that we do with them, we like them to come to us, and we like them to say, actually, we view this we'd love this to be a full-time occupation for us. So what we want is for this business to be their main focus. If it's not the main focus straight away, then the main focus down the line. Any funding that we give has to be clearly accounted for. So we ask exactly in the application process exactly what the grant funds will be spent on, and we ask how it will transform the business. And this will then be picked up on in the interview that we do in conjunction with Heart of Bucks, and we really drill down into what they're going to buy, why it will transform the business. So what are we actually spending? What do people spend the grant funds on? So I've got 3 pictures here, and these are 3 recent grants, and I've actually no idea really what any of them do, but I've learned. So the first one here is a 3D printer. So this is a very recent application that came in this week, and this is for someone who was looking to design. In particular, is agricultural engineer. He's an agricultural engineer, and he wants to develop products in that space. He's already doing it. He's done drawn-ups in CAD designs. He's spoken to potential customers. He actually has a 3D printer, but he needed this one to make a particular type of product. The middle one is a ClimaZone hair processor. So not something that I've used, but effectively it apparently dries hair quicker, and so it enabled the grantee Jack to improve the throughput, speed up the throughput, which means that he was able to service more clients in his salon in I think it was in Bristol. And the final one was a multi-cookie cutter, and this isn't the exact one, but this is a multi-cookie cutter because he was developing mochi gelato sandwiches. So again, he just needed something to improve the efficiency of his business. So we give funding. Generally, the funding is for the business to invest in a new piece of machinery that is going to allow them to diversify their income stream, or it's going to allow them to improve the efficiency of their existing business, therefore making their business more stable. That's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to make the businesses, give them more chance of enduring in the first 2 years. Sorry, I didn't say that, but the businesses that apply, they have to be working for 2 years or less. And so that is what our business is doing. Either mainly it's a new income stream or improving efficiency, and therefore allowing a company to produce more, improve their revenues, improve their profits, hopefully. We also give grants for website build, e-commerceification, whatever, allowing a website to become e-commerce enabled. Training, a lot of grants go for training. One in particular this last week, was for Victorian stone pointing, I think it was. So again, pretty niche. Another training was for an MVQ3 electrician's qualification, which allowed him to service a different type of client. So I hope you're getting a sort of an idea of what the funds are being spent on, the grant funds are being spent on. I don't know if this is interesting. It's pretty technical, but am I okay time-wise, Henry?
Yeah, a couple more minutes would be
okay. So
yeah, thank you.
Process is applicants, they apply through the Heart of Bucks website. We then determine whether or not we want to meet the applicant. Then in conjunction with Heart of Bucks, or I suppose Young Futures Fund, we will then interview the applicant, and we revert with a decision after our internal grant panel meeting. Heart of Bucks award and pay the grant. We offer one other thing, which again, we're still determining how useful these are, but we offer business owner forums, and we run them every 2 months. And that's where grantees come on, and we have up to 6 business owners who then just share their experiences. So they can ask questions, give the benefit of their experience over in running their business. And we presume also that the real benefit happened afterwards. You know, the networking, people contact, share, you know, it's about growing their network as well. It can be a lonely thing, growing your business, especially if you're a young person doing it, everything's new. And as a business owner forum is a way of building up networks and hopefully, you know, picking something up from the calls as well. This. All right, we just slow down a bit. I don't think there's my computer slow down. So the only thing I was going to say for the next, I think, was just donors. We're really happy to talk to people if they're interested in the fund. We're really passionate about it. We love what we do. We think there are real benefits. We do get feedback from all our applicants. They have to fill in a feedback form. We interview them. If anybody is interested in finding out more about the fund and working in particular in Buckinghamshire, then we're really amenable to that, and we would love to hear from people. And because I have put my email on the next slide, but anyway, it's probably better if you come through Henry anyway. Do get in touch, because we're not based in Bucks. This started in Somerset and Dorset, but we'd love to hear from you, and we welcome as much input or as little input as any donors want to provide. We have some donors in Somerset, and they donate directly to the Somerset Community Foundation, and actually we never hear from them. They just like the idea of the fund. They see the impact of it in the Somerset annual report, but they don't actually interact with us on who we give the money to, but we're very flexible in how that works. So if anybody's interested, please get in touch with us via Henry. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you, Nick. And I think that was a great example of how the sort of philanthropy side can engage young people on that, on their early in their entrepreneurial journey. So it's really interesting, and some of the examples bringing that to life were fantastic. Thank you. Nick, if you wouldn't mind cancelling your screen share, and I'm going to move us swiftly on to Charlie Dixon-Prior, for the Operations Director at Caudwell Youth. So welcome, Charlie. If I could ask you to try and finish by 5:2, if that was at all possible. Sorry, it's the penalty of going last, I'm afraid. I wanted to try and get some time for questions. But yeah, Charlie, over to you. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you're okay, not too cold. Can everyone see that okay? I know it's not, there we go, that's better. So, hi, I'm Charlie. I'm the Operations Director here at Caudwell Youth. We're actually only 15 months old. We launched back in October 2021. So there was 4 senior leaders, and we are also co-founded by John Caudwell. And our vision is to support every at-risk young person, and that they can access individualised support. We're currently working in Buckinghamshire, Hertfordshire, Luton and Milton Keynes. And at the beginning of next year, we're also due to launch in Slough. But obviously we're here to talk about the amazing Buckinghamshire today. So what we do currently, we offer one-to-one support, one-to-one mentoring for our young people. Our young people are aged 11 to 24. And what we do is we match each young person with a volunteer mentor in the community. We're looking at young people who may be struggling with isolation, low self-esteem. We're looking at re-engagement in education, looking at training, independent living skills. It's completely led by the young person, and it's driven by what they would like their mentoring sessions to look like. We're looking at building resilience, self-esteem, and also encouraging positive contribution to their communities as well. So the needs that we see at Caudwell Youth, I don't think anyone will be surprised that over 80% of our young people have a mental health challenge. That's not always diagnosed, but it's a challenge that they are currently facing. 31% of our young people are at risk of exploitation. Just under half are involved or have been involved with offending behaviour. And 21% of our young people are care experienced. The reason we work up to the age of 24 is because we do work really closely with the leaving care teams in our local authorities. And we see at least 2 of these needs of our young people. So we say that we support at-risk young people because we don't want to put our young people in categories. But we can see from these stats that they're quite worrying, and we can see where the need is and the support that's needed for our young people. So what does the support look like? Weekly sessions with their mentor, and they're also working closely with a member of the operations team, so one of our youth workers. They probably meet their mentor 1 to 2 hours a week, depending on schedules and teenagers and what's going on for everybody. We really focus on employment opportunities, community engagement. A lot of our young people don't feel confident even going out for a coffee, so it's really just trying to build up that confidence that they can feel part of their community. We look at developing their skills and interests. If they're interested in marketing or computers or maybe even starting up a business, then we can really try and help them hone in on what that's really important to them. So it's completely young person led. We're a choice service, so we really drive that at the beginning when we're talking to our young people. We put in consistent support, so we can support a young person for up to 2 years. So this isn't a short-term intervention, it's a very long-term intervention, and our young people really value that. We're community-based, we're professional, but we're not formal. And then another highlight, and I know my team's been working with Chrissy on our Caudwell Youth Collective, which is our youth participation forum, and it sits alongside our board of trustees, and it's to ensure that our young people's voices are heard throughout all the decision-making processes that go on at Caudwell Youth. Obviously, for our young people, talking about policies and governance isn't always the most exciting thing, and so at the moment we're looking at things more in the realm of recruitment, supporting our Caudwell Youth recruitment and events. That's what our young people are really dedicated and really interested in, so we're focusing on that, and then we'll get to the board meetings at some point. And they're also really interested in doing social media takeovers. They'd love to start a podcast, but it's really early days, so yeah, just really fantastic, and I'm really grateful for the support that we've had from Chrissy on that as well. So looking at our impacts, we do 3 surveys a year with our young people so that we can see how they're getting on. We use it as like a reviewing tool, and we look at things that they're celebrating. We celebrate every win at Caudwell Youth, no matter how big or small, and we note that down. We listen to their mentors, what's the mentors' feedback, and then we produce 3 outcomes reports each year so that we can prove the impact of what the great work our teams are doing out on the ground. So we're looking at increased confidence and self-worth, improved well-being, relationships, building on friendships, maybe removing some friendships that may be not positive for them, increased resilience, have they overcome a challenge? And if they have, that means the next challenge they face, hopefully they'll be able to be more skilled up to take on other challenges in the future. We look at life skills, financial management, especially for some of our care experienced young people that maybe don't have the support network to help them sort out their electric and things like that. We're there to support them with that. And then also increasing their meaningful use of time. So maybe that's spending some time at the gym, or doing a creative writing class, or learning to cook. We're also looking at reducing offending behaviour so the national average is 31%, where our offending behaviour is around 12%, lowered risk of exploitation, reduce of alcohol and drug use, and that is also reducing the use of vaping, improved mental health, and we measure that over 2 weeks, as it's very difficult to measure your mental health over a long period of time. And then we're looking at a significant movement from NEAT to EAT. So what do our young people say? They say a lot, which is great. So we're looking at, these are some of the comments that have come back from our surveys. So one young person, I haven't self-harmed in 2 months and have been using other techniques to manage my impulses. And then my confidence and independence has grown thanks to support from my mentor. And then Lewis is talking about how nervous he was. Wasn't really excited by aspects of life, and that his mentors helped him come a long way. If you'd like to learn more about Caudwell Youth, we've just produced our annual report, which we're really proud of, obviously only being a very baby charity. So yeah, please have a look at our latest annual report that came out last week. How am I doing for time? Oh, I've got a couple of minutes. So just looking at the journey of what our young person might, how they come to us, we receive a huge amount of referrals. Last year we had capacity for 150 referrals, and that's across all 4 counties, and we received nearly 300 referrals last year. So a young person is identified of needing the support, needing mentoring, and you can make a referral through our website. We'll triage that referral and assess the risk, and then we'll reach out to that young person and the family to set up a meeting. We're really keen to keep a multi-agency approach, so if it has been referred to by maybe one of Stuart's team, for example, then we'll include them in that initial assessment. We'll work with that young people to find out how they would like to go forward with the mentoring, what would they like out of it, what do they enjoy, what do they don't enjoy, and then we'll go away and look for a volunteer mentor. Our mentors are incredible. They're there giving up their own time to support a young person in the community. And then we match on skills. It could be career, it could be energy, it could be personality, it could be the same football team. We just try and look at some sort of match that we know that the young person is going to relate to. We work with a lot of mentors who have lived experience, and maybe, and the comment we hear a lot from our mentors is, I wish I had a mentor when I was their age, and it's now their time to give back, and that they've come out the other side. And our young people really value that honesty from their mentors, to say, look, I didn't do very well when I was at school, but this is what I did, and look at me now. So that's really good, to give a little bit of perspective for our young people. We support that match, support that mentor with that young person, and then we let the mentor in flow in the community, and then we do our quarterly review sessions. So our young people can stay with us for up to 2 years, and but each young person is different. Obviously, we've not been open that long, but in the next couple of years, we'll start to look at what is the golden nugget of time for our young people. My estimate is around 12 to 18 months, but if some young people need longer than the 18 months, or they don't, we'll then slowly taper off the service in a suitable way for them. That's everything I have, I think, from me. I can share my email address, or you're best to go to the Caudwell Youth website. But I hope I didn't talk too fast. I know we were short for time, but I'll stop sharing my screen and then we can go to the questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Charlie. Thanks for cantering through that. It was so interesting, and it's definitely worth highlighting, I think, that Caudwell Youth is a philanthropy-backed project, isn't it? It was a major philanthropist who put a significant amount of money into to get you started. So it's really nice contrast to see the sort of philanthropy-backed projects, SWEF and Caudwell Youth, and then the contrast with the statutory service provision as well. So that was fantastic. So if you have questions, please pop them in the chat. Now is the moment. I've got a question from Chrissy for Nick at SWEF. Are community interest companies eligible for funding via the SWEF project?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yippee! Thank you.
Very succinct, Nick. Excellent. Thank you. And a question from Richard. Has any work been done on the proposed the impact of the proposed changes to universal credit on the young people in our community? So that's a great question. And are the MPs engaged in the issues? Which is a very good question. Now, I hope it doesn't come as a surprise, Stuart and Chrissy, that I'm going to come to the local authority on this one. You may not know the answer to the MP's question, and I don't think we've got any in the room today. But you know, are you sort of? I'm sure you are up to date with the proposed changes on universal credit and you know, those welfare changes and what they mean for young people.
Do you want me to go, Chrissy? Yeah, I can't answer the question about the MPs, unfortunately. But yes, we've got our training, as I say, our training and employment coordinator who works specifically with young people and what they're entitled to and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm not too aware of what the changes mean for young people in terms of universal credit, but I know that our training and employment coordinator is monitoring it closely, shall we say.
Good. And I think that really highlights the importance of that conversation between statutory service providers and statutory provision and the voluntary sector, and I think we've got a really good working example of that here in Buckinghamshire. Thank you. So we've got a question from Angela. What other supporters are involved in the Young Futures Fund currently? So as things stand, we've got Heart of Bucks Community Foundation, we've got a great local partner for us, the Rothschild Foundation are involved, we've got SWEF, and we've got the Youth Voice Bucks team at the local authority, with a couple more to be announced in hopefully very short order. So yeah, look out for that early in 2024. A growing project, Angela, I think I would say. Do we have any other questions? Please pop them in the chat. I do have one for Charlie, actually. So mental health, I think, was a bit of a theme today. Do you, in your sort of professional, personal opinion, do you know why it feels like such a huge change for young people? Mental health seems to be such a big discussion. Is that just because we're better at talking about mental health, or is it because there has been a sharp rise in mental health conditions in young people, because I may look old, but I'm actually not that old, and I don't remember it being such a significant problem when I was young.
It's a good question. I'm not sure anyone can answer that fully, but I'll give you my personal opinion. I'm not saying that it's correct. So I think we are better at talking about it. However, there is still such a huge stigma around mental health. Even when we talk about mental health in the workplace and how you deal with someone being off sick when they're not well, and even if you send someone a card, to a get well card, if they've broken their leg, well, you know what to say, right? Really sorry about your leg. I hope you feel better soon. But if someone's struggling with their mental health, what do you write in a card? And so we are talking about it more, but I think we still have a really long way to go in how to articulate, to talk to someone who is struggling with their mental health. When we talk about young people, and we talk about how different their lives are to maybe when some of us were growing up as teenagers, the pressures on young people are completely different. Let's look at social media. Let's look at the higher risk of exploitation. Let's look at potentially longer waiting lists. I say potentially, there is longer waiting lists to be seen if you have a challenge. And then we also need to throw COVID in the mix. We've got a lot of young people who didn't leave the house for a very long time. We've got a lot of adults that didn't leave the house for a very long time. And then the increase of social anxiety. And then on top of that, we've got a cost of living crisis. So it's an absolute mishmash of reasons of why. There's so much good work happening, especially in Bucks. Some of the organisations that we've spoken about today are all working really hard, but it's only a drop in the ocean. We're supporting 25 to 50 young people in Bucks, and we could be supporting hundreds and hundreds of young people that need that support. So yeah, I just encourage everyone to reach out to their friends and just check in on everyone. And even if you don't know what to say to anyone, it's always good just to try and just say how you doing, or send them a card, or send them a bunch of flowers.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Charlie. Yeah, it's a big concern, I think, and one of our main drivers actually for setting Young Futures up was this mental health conversation and some of the statistics around it. But yeah, you've really brought that to life, and I think you're right. It's such a hard question to answer. I don't think there are any other questions, and I have one final one to wrap things up, if you can be patient. Stuart, you talked about having a lot less qualified youth workers now. What are some of the risks associated with that, because that feels like quite a big issue for society, and yeah, what do you think about in terms of risks and some of the things we can do to address the shortage of people coming into the sector?
Well, I'd say one of the things we can try and do to address the shortage is put on a better training package for professionals or who want to get involved in the career, because at the minute they don't know where to go to get qualified. Chrissy being a prime example, who come to us as our participation coordinator, we struggled to find her an opportunity to gain her recognised youth work qualification to go alongside. We got there eventually, but there's just not the opportunities out there that used to be. One of the biggest issues we're seeing in the youth clubs is that I mentioned are being delivered by generally volunteers, is that the needs of the young people have developed, as Charlie mentioned, mental health just being one thing, but kind of antisocial behaviour, gun, knife, crime, all that kind of things. They're bringing these issues to youth clubs, and then it's volunteers who are being asked to have these conversations with young, or not asked to have, but it's volunteers who are then put on the spot and having to have these conversations with young people, and they're not trained to do so. So then one of the biggest risks for us is that youth centres become unsafe spaces, because actually it's a place where young people kind of come together to do wrong, if you like, or, get together with their friends to discuss the next bit of antisocial behaviour they're going to do, or even committing antisocial behaviour on youth club sites. And then volunteers, they're only there trying to do a good thing for their local community, aren't they? That they don't kind of sign up for that. So yeah, it's a massive challenge, but how we address it is the $1 million question at the minute, to be honest. It's, as I say, even within the local authority, we're going through a transformation, and the focus is being shifted more and more to social care. You know, qualified youth workers are being asked to do more social care work, so they're not getting out and doing that early intervention youth work, which our argument is, if we continue to invest in that, we'll see the rewards later on, and it will reduce the demands on the social care system. But at the minute, all the local authority are focusing on is reducing the social care demand, reducing the level 3s, level 4s.
Thanks, thank you, Stuart. Yeah, I think, and that's a really sort of good segue into drawing this to a close. And I think the point you're making really there is more investment. Investing in our young people is really critical.
Young people and early, yeah, and
as early as possible. And I think that's really what we've talked about today, is through a number of different mechanics and vehicles. And we've talking about SWEF, the philanthropy that started Caudwell Youth, and hopefully Young Futures Fund, and obviously the somewhat constrained but really significant efforts from you and your team, Stuart. I appreciate you've got significant financial challenges, but getting the work that you do is fantastic. All of that investment, I think, is needed, and this coordinated, joined up approach. So yeah, thank you. That's a good point to leave it on. So apologies that we've run over by 5 minutes. If anyone wants to be connected to anything that's happening in the conversations we do, please get in touch with us, and we can make connections and continue conversations. Grace, our programs manager for Young Futures Fund, is also very interested in having conversations with people in the sector. So please reach out, and we can connect you there as well. So I think that's it. Anything else, please email. But I really appreciate your time today, and for engaging with this. And we look forward to seeing as many of you as possible very soon. Thank you.